Have you ever felt that intense connection with someone, only for them to suddenly pull away? One moment he's texting you nonstop, making you feel special, and then silence. No calls, no messages, just distance. It makes no sense, right? If he truly craves you, why would he go silent? What is he hiding? You're not alone in this confusion. Millions of people experience this, and the truth behind it is far more shocking than you think. It's not just about losing interest. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. And today, you're about to discover the hidden reasons behind his withdrawal. Most people assume that if a man stops communicating, it means he's not interested anymore. But what if I told you that in many cases, it's the exact opposite? What if his silence is actually proof of how much he desires you? There are deep psychological and emotional forces at play, and once you understand them, you'll never look at his silence the same way again. In this video, we're going to uncover the surprising truths behind why men crave women but still go silent. We'll reveal the fears, insecurities, and subconscious triggers that cause this behavior. And by the end, you'll not only understand why he's acting this way, but you'll also know exactly how to respond. Maybe he's afraid of rejection, maybe he's testing his own feelings, or maybe he's waiting for you to make the next move. The reasons are not always what they seem, and the real truth might change the way you see relationships forever. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn could completely shift the dynamic between you and him. If you've ever found yourself in this situation, wondering what went wrong or doubting whether he even cared in the first place, this video is for you. Welcome to Channel Name, where we uncover the hidden truths of love, attraction, and human behavior. If you enjoy deep insights and powerful revelations, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's dive into the real reasons behind his silence and why it might not be what you think. From the moment they are born, boys are taught a silent rule. Emotions are a sign of weakness. They hear it in small, casual phrases. Boys don't cry. Man up. Be strong. At first, it seems harmless, just part of growing up. But over time, these words shape the way men express, or rather, don't express, their emotions. Unlike girls, who are often encouraged to talk about their feelings, boys learn to bottle them up. If they fall and scrape their knee, they're told to shake it off. If they show sadness, they're teased or dismissed. If they express fear, they risk being seen as less of a man. This conditioning doesn't just disappear when they grow up. It follows them into adulthood, affecting their relationships, their communication, and most importantly, their ability to express love and desire. So when a man craves a woman, but suddenly goes silent, it's not always because he doesn't care. Sometimes he's fighting an internal battle, one that society has wired into him since childhood. He has feelings, but he doesn't know how to articulate them in a way that feels acceptable. He wants to reach out, but part of him fears being too vulnerable. He wants to show emotion, but years of conditioning have told him that doing so could make him look weak. The strong and silent stereotype only makes things worse. For generations, men have been portrayed as stoic, unshakable, and always in control. The ideal man, according to movies, books, and even real-life role models, is one who doesn't let emotions cloud his judgment. He's calm, composed, and, above all, silent. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a male lead in a movie openly express his insecurities? In most stories, the most attractive and desirable men are the ones who remain mysterious, speaking only when necessary, never showing too much emotion. This image of masculinity has been drilled into men's minds, making them believe that staying silent makes them more desirable, more respected, and more in control. This is why, even when a man is deeply interested in a woman, he may struggle to communicate it. He fears saying too much. He worries that expressing his emotions too openly will make him look desperate or needy. Instead, he retreats into silence, not realizing that this very silence is what causes confusion and frustration on the other side. It's not that men don't feel, they feel deeply. They just haven't been given the tools to express those feelings in a way that feels safe. From a young age, they are taught that logic should always override emotion, that showing too much care can make them seem weak, and that detachment equals strength. So when emotions become overwhelming, their default response is to pull away rather than confront them head on. But here's where it gets even more complicated. A man may crave a woman intensely, but his silence can also be a way of testing himself. Does he really want this? Is he too attached? Is he losing control? Because society tells men that their worth is tied to their independence and self sufficiency, they often feel the need to prove to themselves that they don't need anyone. So even if his heart tells him to reach out, his mind tells him to step back. Even if he craves closeness, he may resist it. Because deep down, he's been taught that needing someone too much makes him weak. And for a man who has spent his whole life learning to be strong, admitting emotional vulnerability can feel like the ultimate challenge. This is why understanding male silence requires looking beyond the surface. It's not always about disinterest or playing games. Sometimes it's about deeply ingrained beliefs that have shaped the way he interacts with love and relationships. And until those beliefs are challenged, silence will often feel like the safest option. Rejection, it's a word that carries weight, but for men, it can feel like a direct hit to their very identity. From a young age, they are taught to be confident, to take charge, to make the first move. But what happens when that move is met with rejection? The fear of hearing no can be paralyzing, leading many men to withdraw rather than risk the pain of being turned down. Unlike women who often have social support systems to process emotions, men are conditioned to handle rejection alone. They don't talk about it with friends. They don't express their disappointment openly. Instead, they internalize it, and when a man has faced rejection in the past, whether from a romantic partner, a childhood crush, or even a parental figure, it leaves a mark. It teaches him that expressing emotions is risky, that vulnerability can lead to humiliation, and that sometimes silence feels safer than trying and failing. This fear doesn't always present itself in obvious ways. A man who craves you may want to tell you how he feels, but his mind starts playing out the worst case scenarios. What if she doesn't feel the same way? What if I come on too strong? What if I embarrass myself? These thoughts create a barrier, stopping him from taking action. For some men, this anxiety can even be subconscious. They may not realize that fear is driving their behavior, but deep down there's an internal voice warning them to be careful. So instead of expressing their feelings, they retreat into silence. They stop texting, they stop calling, they create distance, not because they don't want you, but because they don't know how to bridge the gap between desire and fear. Past experiences only make this worse. If a man has been rejected before in a way that hurt deeply, especially if it was a rejection from someone he truly cared about, he becomes even more hesitant. He starts to believe that the risk of opening up is greater than the reward. The memory of a past rejection plays on repeat in his mind, making him second guess every move. Even in cases where a man appears confident on the outside, this fear can still be present. Confidence doesn't always mean security. Some of the most self-assured men struggle with the fear of being unwanted. They may hide it well, but internally they wrestle with doubts. This is why even men who seem fearless in other areas of life, career, friendships, social settings, can suddenly go silent when it comes to expressing their feelings in a romantic situation. There's also the added pressure of expectation. Society tells men they need to be the initiators in relationships. They are expected to make the first move, to read the signals correctly, to risk rejection over and over again. But that expectation takes a toll. Every rejection chips away at confidence, making the next attempt even harder. Some men would rather avoid that cycle altogether than put themselves in a position where they could be turned down. And then there's the issue of pride. Rejection isn't just about personal feelings. It's also about how a man sees himself. If he puts his heart on the line and gets rejected, it's not just disappointing, it can feel like a failure. For some men, that failure is unbearable. Instead of risking it, they'd rather stay quiet, convincing themselves that silence is better than potential embarrassment. This silence can be frustrating, especially when you know there's interest. But from his perspective, it may feel like the only way to maintain control. If he stays quiet, he doesn't have to face the possibility of being turned down. If he distances himself, he doesn't have to deal with the anxiety of wondering if you feel the same way. But the paradox is that this very silence often leads to the outcome he fears most: losing you. Life can be overwhelming. Responsibilities pile up, deadlines loom, and expectations never seem to end. For many men, this constant pressure doesn't just affect their mood, it affects how they communicate, or rather, how they stop communicating. When a man is dealing with stress, his instinct is often to retreat, to go silent, to process everything internally rather than talk about it. Unlike women, who are generally encouraged to express their feelings and seek support, men are often taught to handle their problems alone. From an early age, they hear phrases like, figure it out, be strong, and don't complain. Over time, this builds a habit. When life gets tough, their first response is to withdraw, not to reach out. This withdrawal doesn't mean he doesn't care. In fact, he may crave you more than ever, but his mind is so consumed with external stress that he feels incapable of showing it. Imagine a computer running too many programs at once. It slows down, freezes, and sometimes crashes. This is what happens in a man's mind when he feels overwhelmed. He doesn't have the emotional bandwidth to express affection even if he wants to. Work is often a major source of stress, whether he's facing pressure to succeed, dealing with a demanding boss, or struggling with job security. These worries can consume him. In many cases, men tie their self-worth to their ability to provide and succeed. If he's struggling at work, he may feel like he's failing, not just in his career, but as a person. When this happens, he's likely to shut down emotionally. His thoughts become consumed with fixing the problem, and in the process, everything else, including communication, fades into the background. Personal issues can have the same effect. Family conflicts, financial problems, or unresolved past trauma can weigh heavily on him. But instead of talking about it, he internalizes it. He convinces himself that it's his burden to carry, that opening up about it would make him look weak or incapable. So he chooses silence, not realizing that this silence only creates distance between him and the people who care about him. Men also experience stress differently than women. Studies show that under stress, women tend to seek connection and talk through their problems, while men often withdraw and become more task focused. It's not that they don't want support, it's that they've been conditioned to believe they should solve problems on their own. This is why a man who is overwhelmed may stop texting, stop calling, or appear emotionally unavailable. It's not about losing interest. It's about survival. He's in problem-solving mode, and emotions feel like a distraction from the pressure he's facing. This tendency to retreat can be frustrating, especially when you don't know what's happening in his mind. From the outside, it can seem like he's pulling away for no reason, but inside, he's dealing with a storm he doesn't know how to talk about. In many cases, he may want to explain what he's going through, but doesn't have the words to do it. And then there's the fear of burdening others. A man who is overwhelmed may worry that sharing his stress will make him seem weak, or worse, push people away. He may think, I don't want to drag her into my problem. So instead of talking, he isolates himself, believing that silence is the best way to protect both himself and the people around him. But the problem with this approach is that silence is often misinterpreted. What he sees as self-protection can be seen as indifference. What he thinks is temporary distance can feel like rejection. And the more he withdraws, the more disconnected he becomes from the very person he craves. This is why understanding a man's response to stress is so important. His silence isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about the weight he's carrying, the pressure he feels, and the internal struggle between wanting support and fearing vulnerability. And until he learns that he doesn't have to carry everything alone, silence may continue to feel like the safest choice. Independence is something many men hold on to tightly. From an early age, they are taught to stand on their own, make their own decisions, and rely on themselves. It becomes part of their identity, shaping how they approach relationships and emotions. When a man starts developing deep feelings for someone, this need for independence doesn't just disappear, it often grows stronger. It's not because he doesn't care, it's because the intensity of his emotions can make him feel like he's losing control, and for some men, that can be unsettling. Personal space is not just about physical distance, it's mental and emotional space too. Many men see their independence as something that defines them, something they have worked hard to build. When emotions start deepening, when a relationship becomes more serious, it can trigger a reaction they might not even fully understand. A man who craves you might suddenly go quiet, not because he wants to push you away, but because he needs to step back and process what he's feeling. This withdrawal is often temporary, but to the person on the receiving end, it can feel confusing and even painful. One moment he's present, engaged, affectionate. The next, he seems distant, lost in his own thoughts, avoiding deep conversations or skipping the usual check ins. It's easy to assume the worst, to think he's losing interest. But in reality, he may just be wrestling with his emotions, trying to find balance between his growing connection to you and his ingrained desire for autonomy. For many men, relationships come with an unspoken fear. The fear of losing themselves. When they start falling for someone, it can feel like their world is shifting, like they have less control over their time, their emotions, and even their future. If a man has been independent for a long time, this adjustment can be overwhelming. He may feel the need to step back, not to end things, but to reassure himself that he still has his own life, his own identity outside of the relationship. This reaction isn't always rational. Even when a relationship is healthy, even when it offers love and support, the fear of dependence can creep in. Society has long conditioned men to equate strength with self-sufficiency. They are taught to be providers, to be in control, to handle things on their own. So when emotions deepen, when a connection starts to feel serious, it can challenge everything they've believed about what it means to be strong. Some men handle this by setting clear boundaries, creating space for themselves within the relationship. They might retreat to hobbies, spend more time alone, or immerse themselves in work. Others, however, might withdraw suddenly, as if testing their own limits, making sure they aren't losing themselves in the process of falling for someone. The paradox is that the more a man values a relationship, the more this instinct to withdraw can surface. The deeper his feelings, the higher the stakes. If he didn't care, he wouldn't feel the need to process anything at all. But because he does, because the connection means something to him, he might need to step back and regain his sense of balance. This behavior can be frustrating, especially when communication drops without warning. But often it's not about creating distance forever, it's about recalibrating. When a man truly cares, he doesn't step back to leave. He steps back to make sure he can step forward in the right way. He wants to be certain that he is entering the relationship as his full independent self, not as someone who is losing his sense of identity in the process. But not every man understands this reaction within himself. Some just feel the urge to withdraw without knowing why. They act on instinct, pulling away and assuming they need space, when in reality they might just need reassurance that they can be both deeply in love and still maintain their independence. The men who understand this find ways to create balance without shutting down. The ones who don't may struggle, unintentionally pushing away the person they crave the most. The need for independence doesn't mean a man doesn't want love. It doesn't mean he doesn't want commitment. It simply means that for him, finding the right balance between connection and autonomy is key, and until he figures out how to merge the two, silence may feel like the only way to cope with emotions that are stronger than he expected. Emotional wounds from the past can shape the way a man responds to love in the present. If he has been hurt before, betrayed, abandoned, or deeply disappointed, his silence might not be about you at all. It might be about what he has already endured. Pain has a way of lingering, even when someone tries to move forward. The scars of past relationships can leave a lasting mark, making a man hesitant to fully open up again. When someone experiences heartbreak, they often develop defense mechanisms to protect themselves from feeling that kind of pain again. One of the most common is silence. Instead of expressing emotions freely, he might hold them back. Instead of taking a risk, he might retreat. If he has been let down before, he may believe that staying quiet is safer than being vulnerable. After all, if he doesn't share too much, he can't get hurt. If he doesn't get too close, he won't have to experience another painful goodbye. For some men, this silence is not a conscious choice, it's a habit formed over time. When past relationships ended badly, they may have learned that speaking up only leads to disappointment. If they once expressed love and it wasn't returned, they might hesitate to do so again. If they once trusted and were betrayed, they might struggle to believe that this time will be any different. Their withdrawal isn't about a lack of feelings, it's about fear. Fear that history will repeat itself. Some men have faced rejection in ways that cut deep. Maybe they once opened up only to be met with indifference. Maybe they gave their all to someone who didn't appreciate them. Maybe they loved someone who walked away without explanation. These experiences can leave them guarded, making it hard to trust, even when they genuinely care. Silence, then, becomes a way to cope, a way to hold on to control when emotions start to feel overwhelming. A man with past emotional wounds might not even realize he's shutting down. He may just feel an instinct to withdraw whenever things get serious. It's not that he wants to hurt you, it's that his past has taught him to be cautious. He has learned that feelings can be dangerous, that opening up can lead to suffering, and so, without even thinking about it, he pulls back, keeping his emotions hidden, even when he craves connection. This is why some men seem hot and cold. One moment they are affectionate, present, engaged. The next, they go quiet as if battling an invisible force within themselves. It's not because they don't care, it's because caring is scary when you've been hurt before. It's because the risk of being vulnerable feels too high when you've already experienced the pain of love lost. In some cases, this kind of silence can be broken with patience and understanding. If a man feels safe, if he senses that he won't be judged or hurt for expressing his emotions, he may begin to open up, but it's a slow process. Trust isn't built overnight, especially for someone who has been let down before. He needs to unlearn the idea that silence is the only way to protect himself. He needs to see that love doesn't always have to lead to pain. But not every man is willing to take that step. Some stay stuck in their fear, unable to break free from the past. They continue to shut down even when they want to connect. They avoid conversations even when they long for reassurance. They let their wounds control them, pushing people away before they have a chance to get too close. It's important to remember that this silence isn't personal. It's not about something you did wrong. It's about what he has been through before. But the truth is, no amount of patience can change someone who isn't ready to heal. A man must be willing to confront his past, to face his fears, to recognize that love requires risk. Until he does, his silence may remain, not because he doesn't crave connection, but because he is still trapped in the pain of what once was. Men and women often communicate in different ways, which can lead to misunderstandings, frustration, and silence. While women may be more expressive and open about their emotions, many men tend to process their thoughts internally before speaking. This difference isn't about a lack of interest or feelings, it's about the way they are wired to communicate. When a man goes silent, it doesn't always mean he is ignoring you or losing interest. Sometimes he is simply processing things in a way that is natural to him. Women generally use communication as a way to connect. They talk through their thoughts and feelings, using conversation to express themselves and seek support. When a woman is upset, she might feel better by talking to a friend, sharing her emotions, and receiving reassurance. Men, on the other hand, often view communication differently. Instead of talking through their emotions, they may retreat into silence to think, problem solve, or process things on their own. This difference in communication styles can easily lead to misunderstandings. A woman may assume that his silence means he doesn't care, when in reality he might just be trying to sort out his emotions in private. He may believe that withdrawing is the best way to handle his feelings, unaware that his silence is causing confusion or worry. Men are often taught to value action over words. From a young age, many boys are encouraged to be strong, independent, and self-reliant. Expressing emotions openly is not always reinforced. Instead, they may be conditioned to deal with their feelings internally, only speaking up when they feel a solution is needed. Women, on the other hand, may use conversation to explore emotions. rather than just to fix a problem. This can create a disconnect. While a woman may want to discuss feelings to gain clarity and closeness, a man may remain quiet, assuming his silence is a way of handling things responsibly. These differences become especially clear in relationships. When a woman senses something is wrong, she might ask questions, hoping for an open discussion. If a man is struggling with stress, doubts, or emotions, he might withdraw instead of talking. To him, silence can be a way of maintaining control over his feelings, but to her, it may feel like avoidance or emotional distance. Many women feel frustrated when their partner doesn't communicate in the same way they do. They may see silence as a lack of emotional engagement, when in reality, it might just be a different approach to handling emotions. A man who withdraws is not necessarily losing interest. He may simply be using silence as a tool to navigate his thoughts. Another key difference is how men and women interpret silence. When a woman goes quiet, it is often a sign that something is wrong. It might mean she is upset, processing an emotion, or waiting for someone to reach out. But for many men, silence is neutral. It doesn't always mean something is wrong. It can be a normal part of their thinking process, a moment of reflection rather than a sign of trouble. This contrast can cause confusion, as women may expect men to react to silence the same way they do. This difference also plays out in how men and women handle conflict. Women might want to talk things through immediately, seeking resolution through discussion. Men, however, may need space to cool off and gather their thoughts before engaging. When a woman pushes for a conversation, thinking it will bring clarity, a man may pull away further, feeling overwhelmed or pressured. Neither approach is wrong, but without understanding these differences, both sides can feel misunderstood. Because of these contrasting styles, it is easy for both men and women to misinterpret each other's actions. A man might assume that his silence is giving his partner space, while she might feel ignored or rejected. Likewise, a woman might express her emotions openly, expecting him to do the same, without realizing that his natural instinct is to internalize rather than verbalize. The key is awareness. When both sides understand that men and women communicate differently, misunderstandings can be minimized. Instead of assuming that silence means disinterest, a woman can recognize that he may simply be processing emotions in his own way, and instead of withdrawing completely, a man can acknowledge that a little reassurance can go a long way. Without this understanding, communication gaps can grow wider. A man might assume his silence is harmless, while a woman may start overanalyzing, wondering what she did wrong. He may think his withdrawal is a way to protect the relationship from unnecessary tension, while she may interpret it as emotional distance. These differences don't mean a relationship is doomed. They simply highlight the need for patience and mutual understanding. When two people communicate differently, it doesn't mean they aren't compatible. It just means they need to learn how to meet in the middle. A man can make an effort to express himself more, even in small ways. A woman can recognize that silence isn't always a bad sign. When both sides understand and respect each other's communication styles, silence no longer becomes a source of frustration. Instead, it becomes a natural part of the relationship, one that can be navigated with patience, awareness, and trust. In conclusion, there are many reasons why a man might be silent, even when he clearly craves your attention and affection. It could be societal conditioning, fear of rejection, emotional overwhelm, or the need for independence. Each of these factors can contribute to his silence. Additionally, past emotional wounds and different communication styles can make it even harder for him to express himself fully. It's important to recognize that silence doesn't necessarily mean disinterest or a lack of feelings. Often, it's just a way of processing or protecting oneself. As challenging as it can be, it's crucial to approach this situation with empathy and patience. Open communication is key to understanding why he's silent and how to navigate those moments together. Rather than assuming the worst, try to engage in a conversation that allows both of you to express your thoughts and feelings openly. This understanding can lead to a healthier, more fulfilling relationship where both partners feel heard and supported. If you found this video helpful, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.